So today is September 5th, 2019, and the aspen grove at Rock Creek is still green, but it's supposed to start getting colder tomorrow night. So maybe they'll turn before I'll leave in about 10 or 12 days. This is a real pretty area. Okay, I spent 6 hours walking around a forest area 30 miles from Rock Creek Campground that I'm at, number 46. I was able, with a lot of work, to find pine knots. A lot of them were charred, but they're still heavy and they're still good pine knots. But what a lot of work. It took me several hours, and then I had to move them a long distance to my truck, drive 30 miles back here, unload them from the truck, which is behind me down the hill. Got to carry them up, so I am pooped. I got enough pine knots for at least 9 to 10 days, maybe 13 to 14. So it's about, let's see, 3-4 feet wide and about 10 feet long. So it's a lot of wood. We'll see how long it lasts. So anyway, that's it. Big project. I leave here when the pine knots are gone. So that's my timer right there, the pine knots. I'm not going out and getting more. That's it. Not buying cheapy firewood, pine knots only. So anyway, bye. Okay, this is my second day here. I arrived yesterday, made camp, did the whole thing. Got the tent back there. It was actually raining when I was putting the tent up yesterday afternoon. There was like a Baja thing. It was great. Made everything nice and moist on the ground, got rid of all the dust. And then I've got the stove, the extra table, the whole works. Covered in taffeta, covered in flame-proof plastic taffeta, which is U.S. Forestry Service approved for tablecloths. You got to be flame-proof plastic taffeta. So anyway, good little campsite. Tomorrow, I'm not quite sure what I'm up to, but I will continue on in the videotaping of this trip. This is my 60th year coming to the Eastern Sierras, this exact area. 60 years I've been coming here. I came up here when I was 10 years old. So hasn't changed. Still love it. Awesome sky and color of clouds. Just 30 or 40 feet away from camp number 46 is this awesome little aspen meadow, and you get a 360 view. There's nobody around. It's totally isolated. It's a beautiful place. Here's a good little camping trip if you're doing lots of strenuous hiking and you aren't used to it. Chelated magnesium. Magnesium, most people don't have enough of it in their bodies. And if you're in the Sierras and you're beginning to not drink as much water, you're getting dehydrated, it's warm, the chelated magnesium, take a few tabs of these a day, and you should be taking these anyway at home. They really help with cramping, and as you get older, a lot of people have a tendency to cramp more. So it's a good idea. So just a tip. This is a great little tent for 1 or 2 people. It's a a Eureka Sunrise. It's got a good rain fly. I was in a little bit of a rain yesterday with it, setting it up, but it's got all the good stitching. It's real light and airy on the inside. You can open up all windows all the way around. So it's a very nice tent, Eureka Sunrise. So I'm giving you a little view. Great for 1 or 2 people. Another thing is a must camping is this, and setting up a little porch out of a tarp. Run the tarp under your tent, keeps the moisture from coming up in the tent, keeps it a little warmer, and it gives you a place to change your shoes. And you can bring a broom, sweep it, dust it off, and then have your internal broom for cleaning up inside of your Eureka Sunrise tent. Later. Another nice thing about campsite 46 up at East Fork Rock Creek is back up behind where you put your tent is another tent area. It's not quite as large. It would be more like a smaller tent, but I've turned it into a tarp and a insulated mat for sort of like a stretching, or it could be like a little yoga zone. We've got this nice little spot here all by itself. So I'm going to take good use of this, and good place to stretch out. Another thing that you need to do when you're hiking all over the place. Using 4 small pine knots that are dry and 3 pieces of fat wood as the starter, this should turn into a pretty raging fire in about 10-15 minutes. Then you can add the larger size pine knots onto it, and then when you get it really going, I've got some of these monster pine knots that probably weigh 20-25 pounds each. Lay them across, and that's a whole night's worth of campfire. Just one of those giant pine knots will burn for 2-3 hours. It's awesome. So at home I go to Trader Joe's and I buy some nuts and make up a toasted nut mix that I keep in the refrigerator. And that's my go-to meal here out in the Sierras. Had it for breakfast, having it for dinner. Easy, high protein. You put in some Yoplait yogurt in with it. Some bananas helps with cramping. Good potassium. And it's an easy cleanup. And it covers all the bases, and you don't have any cooking. So I like doing it off and on. All right, well, behind me, you're gonna see the awesome pine knot fire. Now, pine knots are basically the limb of a pine tree that's fallen down and decayed and rotted. So the main tree has rotted away. So anytime you see a dead tree that's totally rotted, there'll probably be pine knots left. They're hard and full of sap, and they burn great. And a good thing to have for pine knots is a hoe. Helps you stir the fire, move things around. So camping comes in handy. Well, it's about 7:30 in the morning, September 7th or 8th, I'm not quite sure. And it gets cold up here in the Sierras. Little Swiss Miss, heated up on the old Coleman stove, takes the shell off, and getting a pine knot fire going right away, that's a plus. You can see the sun just up behind me there. It's has to come over a ridge and get down into this canyon, so it usually doesn't get here till about 8 o'clock in the morning this time of the year in September. So you got to just take the shell off and get a fire going and get ready for a good day. Well, it's breakfast time, and half a can of some Hormel corned beef hash on the old cast iron skillet. Cook it up, add a couple of eggs, and you got a nice hot breakfast. Eggland's Best eggs come in a plastic container that's really good for keeping in a cooler with ice. It doesn't get soggy. The key with the corned beef hash is to cook it long enough so it gets crispy. You want it nice and crunchy and crispy before you drop your 2 eggs in there. And you can also cook some toast in a pan just by flipping it in the bottom of a good pan. Put the eggs in there and stir them around. You don't even need to pre-scramble them or anything. And move them around. And before you know it, you got a wonderful little corned beef hash, egg scramble, and some toast. There you got it. Nice corned beef, egg scramble with some Melton's toast in the morning. Nice breakfast. So there's a trail along the creek just out of the campground, and then you begin to clear the campground. There's some RVs and stuff up on your right, and then you make the way this up next to the creek, and within another few hundred yards you're out of the campground and heading up into a real nice little tiny hike. Rock Creek is flowing really good. 40 feet of snow in the Sierras this last winter, so that's a come in the middle of September. You got all this heavy runoff. It's really, really nice. Found this natural little spot where you have like a built-in chair on a boulder right next to this rushing creek. It's quite awesome. I could sit here for a while later. So one thing you want to do is get used to the altitude. It takes a couple of days. This area is almost 10,000 feet. It's got about 30% of the oxygen of sea level. So it takes a few days to get acclimated, and it keeps you from getting altitude sickness, which is a real drag. You get headaches, all sorts of crap. So you just want to take it easy once you get up here and do a little work, little hikes until you get acclimated. So I'm not quite sure what kind of pine this is, but this thing is huge. It goes way up there. A lot of these trees are nearly 100 feet tall, and they're just sugar pines or white pines. Scenic back in here. All right, this log is decomposed, and it's a prime example of a pine knot. Pine knot was the branch of a tree that decomposed and has a lot of hardness and resin in it. Makes a great campfire, and you really aren't harming the environment, but I'm not going to take this one. So we're almost back to camp, and right near camp and in camp there are several really nice foxtail pines. It's the red pine tree dead center of the frame. Foxtails, they can live to be over 1,000 years old. They're extremely disease resistant, and they're also fire resistant, which gives them a long life. It's a beautiful tree.